Welcome back to another episode of your favorite podcast. I'm Hiba, your host, resident hater, and I am here to talk about all the things that make work complicated and how we can make it better. Joining me today to talk about a first, because the whole season's theme is first. We're going to talk about the first time geography limited talent you could access. So joining me today is Sagar Khatri. Sagar Khatri is the co-founder and CEO of Multiplier, the infrastructure revolutionizing global employment and empowering leaders to hire, manage, and pay global teams worldwide. Leading international expansion at Hamlet, Sagar ran headfirst into a huge problem. Global work existed on a huge scale. Billions of dollars in wages moved across borders each year, but there was no infrastructure to support it. So he built it, the Global Exchange for Work. Since 2020, Multiplier has helped thousands of companies operate across 150 plus countries. The fast-growing company has already processed $2 billion in cross-border wages. Under Sagar's leadership, the Multiplier team will double that figure every year. The company's Series A and B rounds, led by Tiger Global and Sequoia Capital India, raised a combined $60 million, bringing a total investment to $77.2 million. This investment has ignited Sagar's powerful mission to reshape the global economy so that everyone, everywhere can participate in it. Sagar, welcome.
Thank you, Iba. Really excited to be here, and everyone really, really glad to be here.
I'm pretty pumped to talk about Multiplier, not our first time meeting. We spent some time in person, really had a heated exchange about the CEO relationship.
I love that conversation.
It was such a good time. I've been asking everybody this season a question to kick off every episode. And this one is just, what is something you learned earlier in your career that you have had to unlearn later?
That's a very interesting question. I think, I started my career in finance. And I think the single biggest learning has been, because when I was an analyst and I was working hard and so on and so forth, I used to think working hard and your work is the most important thing. Today, I realize the most important thing, now that I'm a CEO of a company, I realize communication is by far the most important thing, aligning people on your vision, mobilizing people by getting them activated and excited about the journey. Communication, I would say the biggest factor that will ensure your company is successful, you are successful as an individual, communication.
Yeah, I really struggled, honestly, with that early in my career, concise communication. And it took me looking at Axios, which is very much the short, smart brevity, concise communication, that opened my eyes up to how to communicate effectively, because I didn't know how to do that early in my career, honestly.
We've been on the same boat. And I would always feel that, hey, I'm working so hard. I'm putting all the hours, look at my output. I should be the boss. But now I realize boss's main job is to communicate. And that's a really important skill to have.
I also love that you and I are both rocking the black t-shirt. We did not twin on this intentionally, but I'm just laughing that we're matching. It's fun for me, first time for everything. I can't wait to dig into the personal story behind why Multiplier exists. Because when we met in person, I had so many questions for you. Because you lived across the world, you were experiencing so much, you were thinking about global hiring. So before Multiplier existed, you were on the other side of this problem. Paint the picture. What were you actually trying to do, and what got in the way?
So I started career in finance, and following that rat race, I also wanted to go and do MBA in the US, and I was doing my GMAT when I came across a very good friend from the past who's now a board member from Sequoia Capital at Multiplier, and he's a close friend from school as well. And he said, hey, why are you going for MBA? Why are you wasting your time? Why don't you work for startups? And I didn't take him seriously. And then he made some introductions, and out of courtesy, I went and met those founders. And I really liked one of the founders, and I spent 1 year, I postponed my MBA plans, and I said, okay, why don't I work at a startup for 1 year?
Yeah.
And that changed the trajectory. I was like, I love this. I'm going to keep building businesses for my rest of the life. And one of the things that I did, which was the Hamlet experience, where I was in charge, I did everything there and it was beautiful. And one of the things that I was in charge of was global expansion. And I was based in Singapore then, and we were expanding to Tokyo in Japan and Sydney in Australia, which are to the American viewers, the highest GDP per capita countries in Asia, like even higher than US in some sense. So really rich and wealthy countries, very organized, your Australia and Japan. And it took me 8 months to open a bank account in Australia.
No way.
And until you have your bank account open, your entity sorted, you literally can't hire people because you can't pay them. You can't give them an employment contract. So think about this, your entire operation. And then in Japan, it was 12 months. It was even worst. So think about this. You have to wait for 12 months to be able to sell your goods and services in the market just because you can't get a bank account open and we are living in 2026.
Yeah, no.
So that was the main challenge. I thought I'm going to change that. I'm going to build the infrastructure where people can hire or expand globally, yeah, in 3 clicks. So that's the infrastructure problem I wanted to solve with Multiplier.
I love when founders like have the problem, they experience the problem firsthand, and then they're like, I'm going to fix this. Those are my favorite type of founders to talk to, honestly, because you know how real the problem is. Like you took 7, 8 months to open a bank account. Like what did that feel like day to day? Like how were you managing that? Because that would drive me crazy. And in a world where everything operates so fast right now, to wait that long to hire someone would send me on a spiral.
Oh, Hiba, it drove me crazy every single hour. I wouldn't say patience is my biggest virtue. I want everything right now. And
Same.
as every founder, I want to become like a $1 billion in revenue today, not tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I've always been a person with high agency and high urgency as every other founder. It used to really get on my nerves. So the company that I was working for was also venture capital backed. And it was a circular error, I called it, because banks would say we want to know the ultimate beneficiary of every shareholder. And Sequoia would say we can't give you a list of our shareholder, it's confidential. And I was stuck because I can't convince the bank. Bank is it's a dragon, it's a big organization. I can't even get to the person who I need to convince, to forget about convincing. Similarly, I can't convince Sequoia Capital to share their LPs. They have never done that in the history of their 50, 60-year-old existence. So it became a circular error. It was so painful. I visited so many times myself. And it felt like we are living in like 19th century or 18th century. So it was really painful. And then so that was Australia. And then when it was Japan, you also have a language problem. And it was like, come on, like there has to be a better solution. And that's when I decided like because in the beginning when I started this company, everybody has all sorts of questions like, will it work?
Yeah.
Doesn't like Workday already exist, ADP already exists? I said, no, Workday and ADP are not solving these problems. You don't understand what problem I'm talking about. So to your point, only founder has that insight. He or she has faced that pain. And once you face that pain, you realize, oh, this is such a large problem. Everybody should know this, but people don't because they have not gone through this pain.
Yeah. Was there at all like a breaking point moment where you were like, this is so absurd? Why does it work like this? Like you're spending months trying to open a bank account, trying to get people hired, and you can't, and you have to wait for so long. But was there like a straw that broke the camel's back moment for you?
Yes. So it was during COVID. It was 2020.
Oh, God.
And I remember when we were trying to open, and I was in Singapore, and Singapore had a massive lockdown. And I remember the Japanese entity or bank account won't open until I go and physically sign it in front of them in red ink.
My God.
And there are no flights. Forget about me able to
People
sign
going
everything. I
nowhere.
can't.
Yeah, that was not
Yeah.
happening.
And for, if you know about Japan, I mean, I love Japan. I've spent a lot of time there. It's a really organized country. It's a really rich country, but they have their own ways of doing things, which you can't change. So literally it's stuck. You can't do business. And we could only move forward because we had a joint venture partner in the name of Mitsubishi, which is like one of the largest Japanese companies.
Yes, I've heard. I've heard of them.
Otherwise, we'd have wrapped up our plans to go to Japan. So that's how big that problem is. And how many companies in the SME segment or the startup segment has access to a joint venture partner like that? So globalization is really an access problem, and that access needs a global infrastructure, global exchange for work, which is what we built.
So I am, by the way, obsessed with Japanese culture. I read a lot of literature that is translated from Japanese, and it's like my dream trip is to go to Japan. So it's been on my list for such a long time. I just haven't made it out yet.
Oh, I'm crazy about Japan too. So wearing black t-shirt is not the only common thing among us here. Because
Yeah, very favorite places to go, Japan. Very, very high on my list. Okay, so you're experiencing this real time during COVID. How are you seeing this across the board? Because like I've hired internationally a few times and can tell you that pain that you're describing, I have felt firsthand. But when you're working with other founders, how is this happening kind of like on a massive scale, maybe across tech or other industries?
yeah, so I went through that pain, and then I did some research, and I realized, no, it's not just us. In fact, one of our research shows that 95% of companies are currently building or planning to build more global teams. And the use case could be different. It's maybe to access talent or maybe to expand globally, but a very large, 95%, very large number.
Yeah.
And you will realize even for enterprises, like really large companies, like talk about Microsoft, Google, Apple, they have all the resources and everything.
They can set up the entities, they have the lawyers, like they know they have the infrastructure to do it. But like your average startup, what? Does
No,
not have that.
exactly. Average startup or average SME. And you will realize that it's not just enterprises that are trying to go global. In our research, we see that 79% of small companies also plan to build international teams. And in US itself, we have, I don't know, millions of small companies.
Yeah.
So helping them to get their next hire, whether it's in Canada or Mexico or UK, this access problem, that's infrastructure problem, is a big problem to fix. Because you'll realize finding a talent is not a problem anymore. There are multiple solutions and whatnot, very nicely fixed, but people just don't feel confident, don't feel compliant, just don't feel, because compliance is not a it's a 0 or 1 problem. You are
I know.
right or you're wrong. That's about
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah. Compliance is truly wild. So many founders I've worked with also don't understand that like we have some of the like most chill employment laws in the United States, and every other country has very specific processes for how you hire people, fire them, do performance issues. Like I think my first time when I hired internationally, I learned so much about the laws in like France, Italy, the UK, and they were so different and also had many more rules than we have here in the States. And so I think that compliance piece is a really big part of potentially what could be holding people back. Like, when did the problem in your mind shift from compliance is a nightmare to actually entire pools of world class talent also seem inaccessible for a lot of us?
yeah. So and again, you've done this yourself. You've faced the pain firsthand. So you understand that. So we started building Multiplier in 2021, and we were in Singapore. And let's say, so today we are 700 people at Multiplier. We are in 50 countries in some 70, 80 nationalities. We've been very fortunate, and we've done a good job. The team has done a good job. But if you were to build that team, we started in Singapore. Now I live in New York. If you were to do that in Singapore itself, if I had to have the 700 people inside one building in Singapore, it's an impossible. I would never sign up for that. So I realized that it's my own problem that I solved in my last startup. I could see the benefit. Like, we are one of our biggest customers because we have teams everywhere on the planet, including France and Japan and UK and US and India are two of our biggest hubs. So idea was, how can we bring this skill set, this global exchange of work to all the companies across the globe so that we can solve their talent access problem so that they feel very confident and compliant when they take their first step towards going global.
I love that. And you are experienced. It's so wild to me that you experienced this problem, then started a company to solve said problem, but then also decided to experience the problem again as a company. You were like,
Yeah.
I'm going to hire everywhere. 50 countries is no joke. 50 countries is a lot.
It's a lot. Honestly, Hiba, sometimes, like if you ask me, Sagar, because, now we are a legit business. We are obviously a sensible
Yeah.
organization. But if you, like, I don't know what founders think. When I started the business, I had this crazy romanticization with this idea. If you ask me, can you go back and start again? I would say no.
Done.
It happened once. I went through all that. It's a painful journey to build to an organization. I mean,
Yeah.
I enjoy building business today because I have my leadership team. We have employees. We have so many customers. We have a very revenue growth, investors. So kudos to founders with this romantic. I was so involved into that idea that I'm going to fix this problem and the kind of things that you go through while building a business. So in hindsight, would I ever want to go back and start a business? Maybe I'll think twice because it takes so much. It takes a village to build that business.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, like you're right, fall in love with the romance of like being their own boss, being a CEO, building something generational. And then it becomes a real reality when you're like, oh, there's so much compliance that is involved and people like at their core when they're everywhere too. Like when you're spread across the world, people also bring different things into work. Like our identities, our attachment to our job is different across cultures. So you really said, let me build a software to solve a problem I'm feeling, but also let me be as complicated as possible with my own company and feel it across the board too.
And it's a really large problem. We were like, one of the things that I always wanted to do is I wanted to solve this problem, and it's very personal to me. And I've gone through this, and it is still personal to me as multiplier. But it's such a large market. Like I'll tell you some numbers. Even today, only 8% of companies feel confident that they are fully compliant internationally. And this is across organizations. Like if you take any HR person or a finance person
Yeah.
and say, okay, so think about this. Your financials are audited by Big Four. Then you feel, oh, my financials should be right because they are audited by Big Four. But who audits your HR compliance? There's no concept like that. So today, when you ask somebody HR, hey, take a company in New York and let's take a random company and ask them, do you think you are 100% compliant globally? There's no way for you to tell. Like there is absolutely no tool available to you where you can say, oh yes, I have this trademark from somebody. So that's one. And then a really large chunk of companies, I mean, 46% of companies have failed to onboard a global hire because of compliance issues. So even when all of these companies tried to take that step to go global, 50% of them fail because of compliance issues. So and not just that, 30% companies still expect a future compliance issue that will come to them in next 12 months.
Yeah.
So that's how big the market is, and that's how painful this problem is. And of course, I started the business 5 years ago, but today the sheer amount of impact that you're having on people's career, on companies' success, on their global footprint, that keeps me motivated. And we can build this business for decades to come. That's how deep this problem is.
Yeah. It's also like right now, I keep joking that we are in like the light speed times where it feels like we're moving so fast. So imagine today, someone trying to like build a company and then they try to hire someone and they say, oh, you can't hire them for 8 months. Could you imagine?
Yeah.
I have CEOs that are like, hire them in the next 8 minutes. I'm like, okay, I guess I will figure that out. Like next 8 months. That's wild.
Even US spoils us.
Yeah.
United States, the labor policies are generally very pro business. There are
Lots.
markets where that 8 months is a reality. In
Yeah.
fact, a lot of markets globally, it's in their labor law itself, there is no concept of termination. So you have to do a mutual separation. Then it's a 3 months period, and then there is so on and so forth. So think about today's world, right? The pace of change has only accelerated. Like
Yes.
AI, new product, AI, Anthropic or OpenAI will launch new product every single day, and we'll be like, oh, world has changed again. But when it comes to talent, when it comes to access, when it comes to infrastructure problem, you're still having to wait 8 months. I don't even know if you will need that role 8 months down the line, or how will the world look 8 months down the line. So how can you plan 8 months ahead? Yeah, it's still a big problem globally.
We've just like complicated it. You were like, I'm set out
Yeah.
to solve this. And then as you were solving it, you're like, wait a minute, it got 10 times more complicated than I thought it was going to. It's so interesting. When you at Multiplier, are you saying you have customers? Are you seeing hires that are coming from all over or just like a specific area?
So, traditionally, people have always thought about global hiring as your developed markets, your US, Canada hiring in low cost countries. But that concept has absolutely turned upside down. Our
Interesting.
biggest market where globally we bring payroll into is in United States. Like the most amount of money that, because we move payroll money as well. Think
Yeah.
about this, the most amount of money that we are bringing, or most amount of jobs that we are bringing, is in the United States. So we are seeing a big trend where global companies, whether it's Singaporean companies, Japanese companies, Chinese companies, British companies, French companies, even across the border Canadian companies, are trying to hire great talent in America. And we'll also seeing the shift, because with this AI, product development has accelerated. So it's easy to now build new products. So all these global companies are now trying to access US market, and hence trying to sell their goods and services in the US market. So we are seeing a big trend. Of course, US companies have always had the option, which they still have today, which they are exercising judiciously around hiring people in Canada, in Mexico, and UK. US companies have always been global. But we are seeing a really large trend. And globally, again, as I said, the biggest volume for payroll plays in the United States. And we think that will only accelerate given the pace of change, or given the pace at which the new products are being built. You want a large market, and there is no other market in the world which is as big as America and homogeneous. Like it's one market. Like every state, like New York is almost as big as Germany. So that trend will continue to accelerate. So US in general, US economy will benefit massively from this.
That's so interesting because you're right. I did think about it completely opposite. I thought like the biggest would be going to find talent elsewhere. And now it's like kind of on its head and very different. I don't know. It's a really interesting time to do this job. I know I said that like a year ago when you and I talked, and that was like barely scratching the surface because now the job is even more interesting than it's ever been before. Just like in HR, trying to navigate this, find talent, move at a pace that I think we've never moved at before because we're watching everything change daily. You're right. By the time we get off the podcast, Anthropic will have shipped another.
Exactly. And I love those Twitter threads where somebody says, Anthropic just killed another industry. And it's like
Yeah.
so fun. People just have a good laughter around it.
Yeah, and then I'm like, I'm so worried about our lives. Can you think of like what is the most striking example you've seen of company finding someone truly transformational in a place they may have never looked before? I'm so curious about this idea.
So I have so many stories to share from our customers, but let me share our own multiplier story that we are very proud of. So we found this employee who grew up in remote part of India. She joined our India team, and now she's based in our Singapore office. Yeah, she's been leading a sales team there. And she grew with us. And when she joined as a BDR. Then she became an account executive. Then she became a senior account executive. Now she has her own team. And who knows, at some point she'll lead our entire Asia business. So finding that talent who has that grit and tenacity to work, that's very important. And again, the ability to find that talent where they are rather than where you are has really enabled us to grow fast.
Yeah. And I think like sometimes we are quite conventional when we're thinking about our talent. And I've observed that more and more HR leaders are really looking for somebody who might not meet all the requirements or meet what you think is the typical profile, but they want to stretch and grow to like add to their organization. Like I find that so interesting because you're right. Like some of the hires we make, we don't know how truly transformational they're going to be. Like in our mind, we obviously hope everybody, right, transforms our business to a certain extent. But then when we find them, I think it's just like such a fulfilling thing when you look back and you're like, I might have never hired that person. And now look at what impact they've had on our organization.
That's one area where, like, generally we say that I am so many years experience, so I've learned something. And that's one area which is, to your earlier question, you have to learn and unlearn every single day. So there are so many employees at Multiplier. If I were to just look at their CV or resume, I would have never hired them. But then you realize that they may not be from the top tier university, or they may not have worked at top tier logos, but they come here and they just rise to the top, and they are like your right hand person today. Like, that's insane. Like, I have so many employees in the company that I rely on. If you look at their CV or resume, they're not from like an Ivy League university. They haven't worked at Google and Facebook and Apple. but the amount of impact, the ownership, the trust that you can place on them, the thoroughness, it's insane. So that's another point to your earlier question. Judging talent by their CV or resume, or sometimes, Hiba, like another thing, some people just inherently don't know how to interview. And some people are generally so good at interview, you get full like, oh, this person, they can answer all your questions. They're going to solve all your life problems.
And they
It
don't.
turns out to be absolutely opposite. So
Yeah. We've talked about that at length. I deeply dislike when people are like, they anchor on the Ivy League or they anchor on the previous company, because I'm like, previous success doesn't always indicate future success. So we have to like
yeah,
dig deep with the candidate to see if they can be successful in our environment. And I just think when you open up the world to hire outside of where you traditionally hire, you have so many more chances to find people who could be that missing piece that you're looking for so deeply that you might not have access to within your typical hiring profile. So I love that. And I think with this AI acceleration and talent being everywhere, you're going to have to look elsewhere because we've already like saturated the current pool. It's like, no, there are incredible AI forward people that exist everywhere in the world right now, not just within the United States borders. So it's a very,
absolutely.
on the flip side, though, because I love to always ask a flip side question, what's the biggest mistake you've seen companies make when they first try to hire globally? What do you think they underestimate?
So, and again, I was sharing the data with you, like so many 50% of companies have gotten it wrong the first time. I will come to the mistake part, but it's a very expensive mistake. If you make that mistake,
Yeah.
the penalties around it and the compliance exposure is, as I said, compliance is 0 or 1. You can really land up in trouble. The first mistake that we've seen is, when people generally think about, and you'll be surprised, the ignorance or just the awareness. I mean, ignorance is the wrong word. I would say awareness is the right word. The awareness around that there is a compliance requirement is also missing. So I have seen companies, and you will laugh at it because you are from the HR background, but people do it all the time where somebody is working in Canada and the US company has given them a US agreement, thinking, oh, we are in the United States, we can hire anybody globally with a US agreement.
You cannot do that. You cannot do that.
It's like, and I'm like, okay, so before I even talk to you about my product, I have to tell you that to hire a person in a country, you need to have a legal entity in that country and a bank account in that country and whatnot. So many times. So many times somebody says, a company in Boston would say, oh yeah, we've hired this person in UK and we've hired him out of Boston. Okay. And that's
You can't do that.
yeah.
It is really interesting because I think like one of the biggest mistakes I've made is just like underestimating what you can actually do. Like exactly what you said. When people are like, let's do it, let's just go hire them. And I'm like, do you understand what that means? Like until I think EORs became more like a common offering for people, I think a lot of people were hiring illegally and ignoring the
Illegally.
piece of it and just were like, whatever.
Eva, maybe a couple more points because this is a serious issue because it lands you in trouble.
So serious.
So many companies have gone, like they have an employee in France, which is generally a very difficult place to terminate because of the labor laws.
Oh, yes.
Without
I
knowing that, oh, you know that really.
I know. I'll tell a story about that after this, but yes.
We have companies who have said, okay, don't understand the laws, have said, oh, I want to terminate XYZ, gotten on a call and said, oh, you're not required from tomorrow. And then there shows the legal bill and the severance, and you're out of pocket by a few $100,000. Another
Yeah.
thing that people have done, we have 1099 contractors in the US, and we have a really nicely built out system around it, and it's
Yes.
integrated with IRAS and whatnot. There are
Yeah.
only 3 or 4 countries in the world which have this rails, I like to call it, infrastructure built out properly. Your UK, US, Canada, and Australia. Apart from that, everywhere in the world, also your Latin American countries, Eastern European countries, lot of folks like to be employed as freelancers or contractors so that they don't have to do their 401ks or income taxes. Because they just don't have the governments there, the systems there don't have the rails to enforce taxes on non employees.
Yeah.
As an employee, when you're an employment agreement, then yes, you have to pay 401ks equivalent in that market, and the tax deducted at source, your employer will deduct taxes. But if you're a contractor, you are required to pay your own taxes as a contractor. The employer cannot deduct that taxes. So eventually, employee or the contractor per se in those markets don't end up paying taxes. And imagine the kind of legal trouble that lands these companies into.
I don't want to imagine it because that's the nightmares. I know how hard it is to fire someone in France because when I first had an employee in France, we hired general counsel into the company. And the first thing she asked was, how the hell do we have employees in France? And we sent them a consulting agreement. And she was like, that is never going to happen again. We are to no longer hire a single person. I remember untangling that situation. My God, untangling that situation was like my first experience with global hiring. And after that, I was like, I better be the smartest person on this topic because clearly it's really hard to untangle it once you're like knee deep in it, right? Like terminating someone in France is not an easy feat.
But you realize, Kipa, it leaves people with trauma and a large legal bill. But
Yes.
then at some point, can you run away from France market? You can't, because it's a really large market. Like, you will have to engage in that global work. You will have to engage with the market, because you still want to do business, right? You don't want to not do business. You still want to grow as a company. That's why it's important. That's the precise reason we have this global exchange for work, which has inbuilt compliance rails, so that when you engage with the other party globally, we have taken care of compliance. We have, think about this. We are not going to just educate you on compliance. We have built that compliance in our products. You can never go wrong.
Yeah. I mean, even if you think of like Canada, for example, every different province has different laws too. So when people are like, oh, we could just hire in Canada, like whatever. And I'm like, you understand, like hiring in Toronto is different from hiring in Vancouver, and they're passing laws. And I don't have time as a full-time HR person to track the labor that are changing every single day in every single country and province in this world. So that's why when about it, it's like everyone acts like it's a simple thing. And then you're like, no, no, no. Until you've experienced this, you realize how complicated this is. You can't just send someone an employment agreement, a US employment agreement, and think that you can wipe your hands clean of like the compliance, which I think a lot of people do. So there's that. The other interesting thing, if we go like big for a second, so we've been talking about the ins and outs of hiring and talent being everywhere and how you thought about building Multiplier. I want to talk like big picture for a second, because I think there's this really interesting relationship between diverse and distributed teams and business performance. So how do you think about that relationship between these very different diverse and distributed teams and how the business actually performs? Do you think of it more as like a direct line or a more nuanced example of how that can impact performance?
So, I mean, I can go on on this topic for the entire day, because again, Multiplier is Multiplier's biggest customer. I have people of 70 nationalities. Let me start by just giving you like few concrete examples, but I also want to explain to you the softer aspect of having a really, global diverse team. So think about this. We have customers in 100 countries today. How do you bring the local flavor nuance in the product if you don't have a global team yourself? Let's say if my product team was only based in San Francisco or New York, how ever in the world I'll be able to send to Japanese customers or Chinese customers or French customers? So for a company that really wants to become a global business, want global customers, needs to have global DNA, so that it can appreciate the inputs need to be global too, which is the employees need to be global too. The second aspect is, for example, on the software side, you will realize this. When I go and attend my town hall and I hear opinions from everywhere around the world, and I see my employees, it's such a big motivating factor for me. And imagine when a new talent joins, if I'm trying to recruit somebody and says, hey, you're going to come into this culture, where one day you're talking to somebody from Moldova, the other day you're talking to somebody from San Francisco, and that's how exciting that life is. It's really insane. The third aspect that people ignore or forget is, let's say you have global customers, you have global teams. Now you also have to service those customers. Because, one thing that you'll realize it's you wanna serve customers like when in the earlier parts of journey at Multiplier, we bought a lot of American software, right, in the beginning, and I was based in Singapore. As a customer, I used to be awake early morning or late in the night because the American account executive would only demo in their time zone. So you want to have global customers, you want to service them, you also need teams on the ground. So for me, because this is my first company, Eva, I just cannot imagine, like because I've always been doing things this way. To me, it's absurd. Like, think about this: when we didn't have airplanes and people would travel using whatever roads and whatnot, it'd be like, oh, I cannot think about anything else. Like life would have been like really bad before planes came along or whatever. For me, like if I ever have to have like one country, 800 people in one building, that would just not be exciting enough.
Yeah. I mean, I feel that. Like, you learn so much from people who are different from you. And the culture is like, I managed a global team across Europe and Asia. And even managing that team, being somebody who sat in America, had an American mentality at work, required me to shift a lot of my thinking too, to like understand, how does their culture engage in this work? How does their culture want to be communicated with? Like, it changes your mind completely as a manager. And so now think about all the customers you're serving. You're right. It would be ridiculous if you anchored your company in one country and said, here's how we're going to approach everyone else. It makes no sense.
Absolutely. And think about this. Like we now bring people, like we just last week we had a customer success offsite. Before that, we had our sales kickoff and whatnot. And imagine this, like when these 70 nationalities come in the same room in some shape or form, right? Like a small segment or leadership and whatnot. That feeling, it's so insane. Like that, keeps me motivated to keep building this.
Yeah, I also love that they always talk about the connection between like diversity and business performance. Like, the more diverse your business is, the better business performance you have. But I think for y'all, the correlation is like literally right there. You're serving a very diverse population. It would serve you to also do that. And I think it just makes work more interesting. Like, do you want to
Yes.
talk to people that are just like you every single day? No.
Exactly. And, like people assign all kinds of connotations with diversity. That's why I like to correlate it with economic performance, because it's so easy to explain. Like, if the entire product team was American, I can assure you they wouldn't know, because Chinese like to use a totally different product. I can tell you, French people like to use a totally different product. They like even the look and feel. Like, let's say if I have a certain UI UX, the French UI UX has to be totally different. The Chinese UI UX has to be totally different. Japanese people love so many buttons everywhere because they like to play with the products. I mean, you how will you ever in life make a global business if you stick to not having talent globally?
Yeah, I love that. Um, I have to ask about this because I can't believe we've gotten this far and we haven't gone deep on this yet. But AI, we touched on it lightly. Like, AI it's really changing the nature of work very quickly, like to the point where I have worked at now 4 venture-backed startups. I'm used to the fast pace. Even the fast pace of AI is getting to me. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I can run this marathon. Like, I need to get in shape. So like, that's kind of what it feels like right now. Does this make geography, like where people are located, more or less relevant to how you think companies are going to think about talent over the next decade?
So it's a very important topic, and given that I operate in HR tech, Hiba, you can be sure I have spent so much time on this because our company, our industry depends on it.
Yeah, yeah.
So before I answer a specific question, let me just give you my view or our view on what we think about AI and revolution. Right? Think about all the historical revolutions that have happened. You
So
had
many.
industrial revolution, you have information revolution, you have all that, and now you have AI revolution. In our parents' generation, when there was no industrial revolution, they were all busy manufacturing paper or clothes and whatnot. And the best minds of that time were the best manufacturers of clothes, right? Then we had information revolution. Think about last 10 years. Like, all the smartest people that I know in the last 10 years, they were busy doing a few things. And what are those few things? They were busy making sure we don't abandon our Amazon cart, or we watch 2 more minutes of their TikTok videos. Isn't that like the best software engineers in the world were busy making sure you continue to scroll on TikTok and spend 2 more minutes on your phone?
They're doing a good job.
So so thinking that AI will lead to a job loss, I think it's a very narrow thinking, because you miss one very important point, that the challenges in the world are not finite. Whenever there is a revolution, and AI will be, and no doubts in my mind, is and will be a much bigger revolution than information revolution, than IT revolution, than industrial revolution. But all the best minds of the generation will move on to solving bigger challenges. What I call efficiency hiring paradox, where when companies become more efficient, and I lead AI transformation in the company myself, and we have been doing a lot of agents and whatnot. And we are still hiring aggressively, because now in the same budget, I can do so many things. So when companies become more efficient, they don't sit around and enjoy that cash. They deploy it to do so many other things, and we're launching so many other products. So I am particularly very excited. So that is just the AI revolution. On your particular question around what are we seeing? We are seeing that because building a product has become so easier. Starting a company and getting off the ground has become so easier with AI, with Claude and Cursor and OpenAI. Now our platform is being largely used to sell globally. And what does that mean? That I don't need 100 people in Mexico now, or 100 people in US now. I will hire 2 people in US, 1 in Canada, 1 in Australia, 1 in Singapore, 1 in Japan, because now I have to go the fastest, because if I don't go fast, somebody else will catch up, and they can catch up very fast because they also have the same tools that I have.
Yeah.
So I have to go fast and grab the market in every single part of the world. So we are seeing accelerated use of our platform for global selling in the earlier parts of the company's journey now.
Interesting. That makes so much more sense. Wow, this is really the most fun time of HR for me. Also, when you said revolutions, my first thought was the French Revolution, because that's my favorite revolution. And then I was like, oh, he's talking about technology. Okay, I'll get my brain. No, but like that comment, if we're seeing the sales hiring happening earlier, like it is changing how companies are thinking about talent. And I think you're right, like to minimize it by saying like, oh, they're just replacing talent with AI is the wrong way to approach this problem, because I think it's so much more complicated than that. And I'm like, I make TikToks. I'm on TikTok, like commenting back to people like, I don't think your company is replacing you with AI. Like, I think they're thinking more thoughtfully about when and why I need to hire this specific talent now. And you're right, like the goal is to reach as many people as possible. So go hire people in those different countries earlier in the pipeline. Ooh, that's so fascinating. I'm going to think about this all day. Okay. So does Multiplier's mission, do you think, get bigger or maybe smaller in the world of AI agents? Everyone cannot stop talking about agentic AI. What do you think is going to happen to Multiplier's mission, bigger or smaller?
So it's, of course, I'm the CEO, so I'll always tell you it's bigger, but it's also it's also evident by numbers. Like as every quarter, our growth rate is increasing, and we are seeing more and more use cases of our platform. And so that's where I think our mission is to be world without limits, and is going to get even bigger, because now we are building the global exchange for work. Think about this today, and this number is continue to double, triple every other year. 180 billion in wages move across borders every year. So that puts global work almost on the same scale as the world's major assets. Think about stocks, currencies, but those markets have proper exchanges, right? You have, NASDAQ and NYSE and so on and so forth. They run on a proper infrastructure. But your global exchange for work, that doesn't exist today. Do you have any infrastructure for global work? That we've talked about French problems and Japanese problems and whatnot, because it doesn't exist. So that's the infrastructure we want to build. Multiplier wants to build that global exchange for work, which will have this inbuilt compliance, which will have this money movement infrastructure, which will have all of these bells and whistles that you need to go global, to participate. Think about this. We're going to build this global infrastructure for work where countries companies and talent can participate without any friction, with full compliance, and money movement can happen. So by end of this year, we are aiming to power 3% of that 180 billion number. We're aiming to power just 3% of global cross-border wages. And that number is only going to go up as we go. So we are very excited, and we think in the world of AI agents, in the world of AI, work is only going to go more global, so that global exchange for work or global infrastructure will not just be a preference, will be a deep need for the world.
Yeah. I saw your inner finance guy right there when you when you were like exchanges. I was like, finance, here we go. I should have been texting you when I was watching Industry. Every Industry, I text my one friend in finance, like, what's the short? And every season he's like, you ask me this question every 9 months, like, go Google what a short is before asking me this again. I love thinking about that, because you're right. Like, you're moving a massive amount of money. It's just exchange across everything. And to only do 3%, like, that's so exciting, because, like, who knows what that number will be next year and the year after that. And I do think in the world of AI, our worlds get so much bigger. And that excites me. There are a lot of things about AI, to be very clear, on this podcast I've talked about that scare me. And the expanding part does excite me, because I'm like, what could our world and companies look like if we can reach more and different unique people? Like, does our work become more fulfilling working with different people and serving different types of cultures? I think it would, but I don't know. So this season, the whole theme is firsts. And we talked about, like, your first time starting a company and solving this really tricky problem and hiring remotely. What do you think is the first mindset shift a founder has to make before they can truly build a borderless team?
So maybe
Good question.
maybe choosing one thing could be a little tricky, but I think in today's world, going global is table stake. Like, if global is your strategy, then you don't have a strategy, because that's so table stake. So I would say having a global team is super important, not just for the company's growth, but it's also important for your survival.
Yeah, I love that. Like, truly thinking about having your people elsewhere. I think for so long we defaulted to, I have to be in person with this person and look them in the eye every day to do good work with them. Then we went remote, and now I've seen a lot of companies make the shift back to in person. And that shift back, I've just been like, what are you doing? There's like so many
Mhm.
people everywhere. Like, you don't need to look someone in the eye every day to know they're doing great work. So I love the idea of making that shift, that people can exist anywhere and we should think globally before we think about anything else. That's a really cool idea. I don't know. Some people really want their executives all in the same place. Like, my entire executive team, with the exception of me, is in Austin, Texas. So, like, imagine me during our exec meetings. I'm the only one proving to be very interesting, but we'll see what happens. For people who want to get in touch with you and learn more about Multiplier, what is the best way they can reach you?
You can always reach out to me at sagar@usemultiplier.com. And I love talking to customers. I love talking to folks who just want to know about global hiring, who just want to get started with their journey. So feel free to reach out to me. And I love talking to people. So I'll be very happy to get on a call and understand from you what you think about global hiring.
Yeah, I love that. You're such an interesting CEO. You love talking to people? What? Just kidding. I just read the Meta article where they were saying they're like going to do an AI clone of Mark Zuckerberg so he can talk to employees. And I'm like, I don't think that's what we're supposed to be solving for. So glad you heard it here first. A CEO who wants to talk to people. And I'm just kidding.
I think AI or not AI, Hiba, relationships will always remain. That empathy, that will always be at the forefront.
Yeah, of course. Try to AI clone me. I don't think it could happen. No, I don't think an AI clone would have much fun on a podcast. Okay, just saying. I'm just saying. Thank you so much for spending time with me today, and I can't wait to have you back on the pod someday.
Thank you, Hiba, and thanks everyone. It was such a pleasure to be here.